Today, I'm going to explain an American coming-of-age comedy-drama film called Jack. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie begins at a Halloween party where a young woman, Karen Powell, is dancing with her husband, Brian Powell. Suddenly, Karen feels a sharp pain in her stomach and steps aside from the dance floor. Brian quickly gets to her and asks her what is wrong. It turns out that Karen has been pregnant for little more than 2 months, but is going into labor. Brian and their friends rush her to the hospital. The nurses do not believe her when she says she is not due for another 7 months. The doctor comes in and calmly tells her that it might only be some early pregnancy cramps, but is surprised to see her fully dilated. With a deep breath, Karen pushes out a fully developed baby boy. She holds him in her arms and calls him Jack. The doctors check Jack's condition and find out that he has an exaggerated form of Werner syndrome. Because of this, his cells are growing 4 times faster than the normal rate. Although he should be a 2-month-old infant right now, he is a fully developed 9-month-old baby. Karen must have cheated on Brian with Superman. The doctor assures the parents that the kid is perfectly healthy and in good shape. He explains that nature has given all humans an internal clock that measures our lifespan and controls our growth. Jack's clock happens to tick faster than others. The condition is unheard of, so it doesn't have any cure, but they predict that if the kid grows at this rate, he will turn into a fully grown 40-year-old man by the age of 10. The parents are in utter disbelief. Cut to 10 years later. As the doctors had predicted, Jack grows up faster than any human and appears to be a full-grown man at the age of 10. Although his appearance affirms otherwise, Jack is a child by nature. His parents have never allowed him to step out of their gated house, scared that he will get bullied, which is strange because he could definitely kick a 10-year-old bully's ass. The neighbor kids, who have only got glimpses of him through the window, consider him a giant monster who eats children. Lawrence Woodruff is Jack's teacher, who homeschools him every day. He is the only person who is close to Jack, other than his parents. One day, Woodruff is trying to teach Jack, but he keeps on getting distracted by the kids in front of the house, trying to get a glimpse of the giant 10-year-old. To mess with them, Jack throws a gooey eyeball toy through the window. Woodruff finally gets him back to his studies, but notices the sadness in Jack's eyes. After the class, Woodruff suggests to Karen and Brian that they send Jack to school. Karen, being the protective mother that she is against the idea. Woodruff states that they can warn the principal and prepare the kids for Jack's arrival to make it easier for him to fit in, but the parents are still against the idea. In the evening, Jack and Karen play Marco Polo around the house. When the game ends, Jack asks Karen if he really is a giant monster. He had heard the children talk about him during the day. Karen assures him that he is as normal as any kid his age, which couldn't be further from the truth. Before going to sleep, Brian and Karen discuss if they should really send their kid to school. They're disturbed by Jack coming to their room, wanting to sleep with them because he had a nightmare. The following day, Jack is told that he is going to school for the very first time. He excitedly shaves his beard and puts on his clothes. Karen packs him food and they make their way to the school. They meet the principal, McGee, who welcomes Jack. The parents wish him good luck. Before leaving, Karen asks him to call her anytime if he gets bullied. The principal then introduces Jack to his teacher, Miss Marquez. Jack shyly enters the class and stands in front of his classmates. The group of kids who were chased away by him yesterday are also in the same class. Miss Marquez introduces him to the kids and asks him to take a seat. Jack then sits on his seat, which is too small for him. While trying to fit in, he falls off, making the entire class laugh. Even when he is provided a bigger seat, he breaks it, and the kids laugh even harder. During recess, he is alone on the playground. The children look at him and whisper to each other about his controversial size. The group of kids who he chased away the previous day watch him in fear, believing that he will probably beat them for bothering him. The group leader, Lewis, brings out the monster eye from his bag and shows it to Jack, but quickly puts it back inside. Just then, a rival group challenges them for a basketball match. As Jack watches them play, 2 little girls poke him with a stick and ask him how old he is. They make fun of his receding hairline and his hairy arms. After he sends them away, the basketball lands near him. He picks it up to throw it back, but the rival kids say they do not want to touch the ball since it is probably contaminated now that Jack touched it. Lewis and his group clearly feel bad for him. Jack sulks when he returns home and doesn't eat his favorite food that Karen cooked. Brian tells him about the day he first rode a bicycle and points out how much he has improved since. Using the analogy, he makes Jack understand that the children at school will eventually open up to him. The following day, during lunch, Jack gets into a tunnel to eat since he has no one to eat with. Miss Marquez feels bad for the kid and eats with him. Lewis and his friends are challenged to a basketball match yet again. Since they are short on teammates, Lewis invites Jack to play with them. For the first few rounds, Jack doesn't understand what he should do, but as he gets a hang of it, he scores the most and makes Lewis's team win for the first time. Following that, they are in Miss Marquez's class, where she asks them to write an essay about what they want to be in the future. She pays extra attention to Jack, because at this rate, he'll be dead by 20, and because of his specialties. Jack, on the other hand, starts to develop a crush on his teacher. After school, Jack thanks Lewis for letting him play. Lewis, in turn, asks him for another favor. He wants him to pretend to be the principal in front of his mother Dolores, so he wouldn't get in trouble for not doing his homework. Lewis is a crafty little shit. Jack is skeptical about the idea, but Lewis doesn't give him time to explain. Dolores arrives at the school and introduces herself to Jack, believing that he is the principal. She tells him that she has recently gotten divorced, and Lewis is acting out because of it. As she talks, Jack only gives her one-word answers. He ends the conversation after claiming that Lewis is the smartest kid in the school, and she shouldn't worry about him. Before leaving, Dolores gives him her number, asking him out for lunch sometime. Lewis thanks Jack for having his back and takes him in his group. That day, Jack returns home happier than ever. He runs around the house and calls his father at work, telling him everything that happened throughout the day. On the weekend, Lewis knocks on his door and invites him for a sleepover. Karen is surprised to see how quickly Jack was able to make friends. She allows the two to go over to Lewis's home, but they cycle back to a treehouse that Lewis and the group hang out in. The other kids do not want to let Jack in the group, but Lewis shows them the adult magazine that Jack was able to get for him on the way. Seeing that they can probably get a lot of favors from him, they accept him into the group. They talk about girls and alcohol and have farting competitions all night. Meanwhile, Karen misses her kid since he has been away from home for the first time in 10 years. Brian finds her inside the box that Jack often plays with and tells her that their kid growing up is a good thing. The following day at school, the kids take a class picture for the yearbook. Starting that day, Jack becomes an inseparable member of the group. They hang out at the treehouse almost every day, go trick-or-treating on Halloween, and Jack buys more adult magazines for his friends. "Hooray! Titties for everyone," cries Jack. One day, he even brings Woodruff into the treehouse and lets him in the group after making him eat a gross smoothie bowl. However, the treehouse cannot handle all that weight and breaks. As time passes, Jack grows older. He starts to lose hair and go bald, because of which he uses black gel on his head. His classmates start to submit their essays about what they want to be in the future, but Jack hasn't decided yet. A girl says she wants to get married by 28, but when Jack does the math, he finds out he can only marry when he is 112 years old. He mutters to himself that he wants to be alive when he grows up. After class, he asks Miss Marquez to be his date for the dance. As she tries to explain they cannot go together, he kisses her. Miss Marquez is going to jail. Miss Marquez is taken aback. She bluntly tells Jack that he is just a child, so they cannot go together. She apologizes to him, but he breaks down crying and runs away. However, his day gets worse when he trips and falls on the stairs. He is immediately rushed to the hospital, where his parents come running, worried for their son. The doctor claims that Jack's body has suffered a severe strain because of the rate of his cell multiplication. Hence, his internal clock is starting to run out, meaning he doesn't have that many years left to live. After returning home, Karen tells Jack that they have decided to withdraw him from school for his own safety. Jack throws a tantrum because he doesn't want to be separated from his friends. He begs Brian to let him go back to school, but the parents know they cannot allow that after what happened. At night, Karen and Brian are talking about Jack in their room when Jack gets a hold of the matchbox that has Dolores' number and the name of a club on it. He sneaks out for the first time and visits the club. There, he meets a man named Paul and drinks with him. A while later, he meets Dolores and they start to dance. In the middle of it, she tries to make out with him. Jack remembers she is still his friend's mother and retreats. He tries to get away from her, but bumps into a guy in the process. The man is clearly drunk and starts a fight with him. Jack insults him, making the guy punch him in the face. At the end of the night, Jack ends up in jail for trashing the club. Dolores bails him out and drives him back home. Good thing for Jack, his parents are asleep, so he doesn't get in trouble. 2 weeks have now passed since the incident. Jack has been sulking in his room all this time. His friends come to meet him every day, but he doesn't come out of the house. Karen calls Woodruff to their house in hopes that he will persuade Jack to come out of his room. Jack talks to him and says that he doesn't want to learn stuff that he will probably never get to use in his life because he won't live long. Some days later, Lewis gathers the entire class in front of Jack's house to call him out to play. The next day, Jack gets out of his room and decides to go back to school. His parents allow him to do so, seeing how happy school makes him. Everyone in his class is overjoyed to see him back. 7 years later, Jack and his friends are at their high school graduation. He is now much older, with gray hair and wrinkles. At the end of the movie, he delivers a speech in which he reminds people that life is short and urges them to make their life spectacular. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like if that ending depressed the hell out of you. Thank you for watching.